April 15th, 2024. Hope you all got your taxes in. I'm even wearing my Space Princess shirt, a little logo I designed for my space trucker novel called Sudden Rescue. I'm going to flip this around. You guys don't need to see my face. Today, we are going into the depths of space, and we're going to be doing some vector movement. Now, if we check the calendar on our regularly scheduled campaign, you will find, those of you that are keeping score at home, that Chad Solo is available today. But we're going to stick a pin in that. We're not going to do anything with him yet. We'll catch up in a few days. Don't worry. We're not giving up on old Chad Solo. And, of course, Jeremy Powell, the scout, he's still like a month out, man. He's doing his thing, and we'll catch up. So instead of doing Chad Solo, I have been hoping that we would get to some space fighter combat for a long time, and it would happen organically, that we would wind up with a scenario that was interesting, that we could game out on the table, and unfortunately, it just hasn't happened. So, heck with it. Let's just go ahead and do a little adventure on Spec. We're going to do some space combat. I'm going to show you how the vector system works. I'm going to show you that the rules of the vector-based space combat are not as complicated as you think. Before we get started, let me just mention what we're not going to be talking about today. We're not going to be talking about what you could do. What we want to do is know the kind of game that results when you play, well, this is book one. We should actually be looking at book two. If we use the rules in this book, what is the game that results? What can we learn about our hobby by dialing the calendar back to 1977? What can we learn about space combat? What have people been missing for 40 years? A lot of these games have gone unplayed, and a lot of very smart people have read them, they haven't experienced them, and that limits their understanding of the game at hand. Not many people have done what we're about to do today. We are embarking in not quite uncharted waters. If you go look at, of all people, the Basic Expert has done this. He did it using digital tools, which I consider to be, it's fine. I'm not criticizing the guy. He's a good guy. You should go watch his channel. He does a really deep dive into all three of these books. But I am a huge fan of the analog systems. It's 1977, so we're going to be using pen and paper. A little bit of a warning, you do want a compass for drawing circles. I'm going to have to, I don't have one available, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of cheating on that score. The other issue is that I am going to be dipping into a few of the supplements that are post 1977. Kind of gotta you gotta tweak things a little bit to gem them in and make them work. Before we dive in, I want to talk about one thing that you could do. There is one thing you could do. And this is where Mark Miller does modern day role players a favor. Here on page 38 of book 2, he says, is it 38? 37 rather. He says, non-miniatures battle. Generally, when a ship enters a system, the encounter should be consulted, right? We get that. Ship encounters may be made an easily included part of adventure by abbreviating the movement requirements. In essence, when an encounter occurs, shots are traded without regard to range. You'll see why here in a little bit. When one vessel elects to flee, the referee then states a certain number of shots may be made before the ship is out of range. For greater detail, it's possible to plot the progress of space battle on paper without regard to miniatures. That's what we're going to be doing today. Such activity gives a permanent record of the activity. That's what we're going to wind up with today, and allows the imposition of appropriate scales as necessary. So what we're going to do, now there you go. So you are well within your rights, even under the rules as written, to say you jump into a system. There's a pirate ship. You've got a total of, well, I'm a fair and reasonable DM. There are going to be 6 rounds of combat. If you can survive the 6 rounds of combat, then you will be able to make it to patrolled space. There's a patrol coming, and they will run away. You could, for the chat, hey, Stonic, Megabuster, Victor's in the chat. Who else we got? We got old Mr. Mandalf. We got Cyric. Oh, we got the whole gang is there, and you guys are going to be back-checking me and correcting me when I'm wrong. You could play a Gentil High Lightning, but again, that moves beyond the 3 little black books, which we're trying to minimize. Not always possible, as you'll see shortly. Let's take a look at our 3 combatants. To keep this simple, so the first thing I should probably point out is that ranges in this game, no, the first thing let's talk about movement first. Your ships have to move before you do anything else. So we're going to drop right down in there, and we're going to take a look. And it's really quite simple. I have a spaceship, and it's right here, and I need to know two things about it. Which way are we going, and how fast are we moving? Corvinus, I did a ground engagement yet. I did look for the hunt in the jungle. We did a little safari in the acid rain jungles. So here's our little spaceship. Doesn't matter what it is because I'm just trying to show you how, oh boy, my camera doesn't like black and white. Let me see if I drop a little splash of color in there. And she's moving in this direction at 3 inches. So we've been fighting and we've been doing some stuff, and maybe he took some shots, maybe he didn't. So what you're going to do is drop down a little ruler, and you're going to mark 3 inches. Absent any thrust applied to your vessel, this is where it will land. And just to illustrate a little further, I'm going to draw a little dotted line. But I have a total of, and let's just say I have a fairly powerful spaceship, and I have enough thrust. I've got, call it 2 thrust. What that means is I can draw a circle with a radius of 2 anywhere around here. I can apply 2 G's of thrust to stop right, well, there's our 2 inches right here. And in that event, the actual movement I've gone is here. And now my thrust, well, okay, right? So I was moving at 3, but I braked by 2, so I am only moved 1 inch this turn. Far more interesting is where I say, you know what? I'm going to apply 2 inches of thrust in this direction. I want to make a hard right turn. This is the direction and magnitude of the thrust that I have applied. What that means is I will actually move along this line right here from point to point. That is how I moved this turn. We measure the length of the line, and I will go to the nearest quarter of an inch to keep it simple. 2.2 is my new thrust. On the following turn, oh, there's somebody over there, and now I want to head back in that direction. I better apply my 2 inches of thrust. Well, hold on now. So one of the things I like to do to simplify this is I will lay my ruler down with 1 inch on the last heading. And then I'll measure my 2 1/4 inches. This is my momentum from the last turn. Absent any kind of thrust, this is where I'd wind up. But as I said, I'm now looking to apply 2 inches of thrust in this direction. So this is where I wind up. And then I drop my ruler down and I measure that distance. I'm still moving at 2. So my distance here, there's 2 inches and 1/4. So I'm still moving at 2.25, but now I'm in that direction. Okay? Now, in this manner, but because if I wanted to do a full reverse, you actually can turn a little bit faster than you realize, but the faster you're going, the wider that arc is going to be. So on our next turn, I could say, okay, well, I would normally wind up moving to 2.25, but I'm going to apply 2 inches of thrust in this direction. So there's my 2 inches. This is, oh, no, I'm sorry. So here's my 2 1/4. Normally I would wind up here, but I'm going to apply 2 inches of thrust in this direction now, and I will wind up landing here. Now, obviously, if I apply 2 inches of thrust here, then my final direction is going to be like this, and now I'm blasting away at 4.25 inches. Now you like to put it right there, right by the ship. So you can see I'm hoofing it now. There's no way on the next turn I'm not going to leave the paper. What do all these scales mean? Each turn is 10 minutes. And each one of these accelerations costs me 1 fuel. That may be very important because I may not have a whole lot of fuel to work with. So we can come back to our book now, and we'll go to the very front of the combat section where Mark talks about it. Each game turn is 10 minutes. Okay, 6 turns equals an hour. Got it. The plane surface is represented as two-dimensional surface at a scale of 1 equals, 1 inch is 1,000 miles. So coming back to our little map here, every inch here, 1,000 miles. That makes it really easy to scale a planet. If you have a planet, we rolled our 2 dice, and our planet had a diameter of 2 inches, you just draw a 2-inch circle on your map. There's your 2,000 miles, okay? And this leads to some rather interesting effects because a planet can have gravity. It's drawing you in, and you have a new vector that you have to add. We'll talk about that when we get to that part of the fight. And it's this is where things get a little bit complicated. Now I got to warn you, I'm going to scale this back by a half. In other words, 1 inch for my guys is going to equal 2,000 miles. And what that does is it lets my 8.5 by 11 piece of paper cover not just 8,500 miles, but 17,000 miles, which is a lot, but which is not a lot in the grand scheme of duking things out in the void. And if you are out in the middle of a void, then yeah, go with page 38 because there's nothing to get in the way. There's no real maneuvering to do. It's just you're either going towards each other or away from each other. You need to think about what kind of scenarios justify the effort that you're putting into this level of what kind of effort you're putting into this level of effort. What are you going to get? Is the juice worth the squeeze, as old Glenn Ford over at Rule of Carnage likes to say? And that's what this is showing here. This is your momentum, this is your thrust, this is your ultimate direction, and this is your new momentum for the next turn. Very easy. In fact, for the planets, he even tells you, if you've got a planet the size of Earth, Earth is going to have a diameter of 8,000 miles. The circle you draw has a radius of 4,000 miles, and look at this. If you are within if you're at the surface of Earth, you die because you just crashed. But as you get away from Earth, there may be 0.75 Gs pulling you in. Now, of course, that's only 0.6 inches. It's not a whole lot of space. But look what happens if you're blasting around the orbits of Jupiter. First of all, for Mercury, you're never going to get 1 G. That one gravity is Earth's gravity. For Mercury, the best you can do is 0.25, and you got to get really close. Mercury has a radius of 1.5 inches, and that you got to get within a quarter inch of it. So you're really probably not going to see a whole lot of effect there. Bear in mind that the distance from the Earth to the Moon is it's measured in feet. It's like 15 feet. So if I have Earth on my paper, the Moon is going to be 15 feet away. It's just not going to be a factor. But for something like Jupiter, take a look at this, right? The diameter is 88 inches across. The radius is almost 4 feet. Well, why would I have to worry about that? Well, because even if you are within 4 feet of Jupiter, now Jupiter can be way off the paper and still have an effect. It's got a radius of, like I said, its radius is 3 feet. But if I'm within 45 inches, 3 feet 9 inches, then I've got 2.5 Gs pulling me in. And if my ship gets damaged and I've only got 1 G to work with, that could be trouble for me. And then once you step out each time. So when we get out to 54 inches away from the center of Jupiter, remember, that's only 10 inches away from the surface, 10 inches away. So if Jupiter is here, 10 inches is still on this piece of paper. I'm moving to those bands pretty quick. So gravity, I think, could have a pretty big effect. We may see that if we have time to do a second shot. The way the game works. Now let's look at our combatants here real quick, and then we'll check in on the chat. So what I have here is a pirate, Cheg's Venture, and we may run this fight a couple of times. I wanted to have more than 2 ships, because if there's just 2 ships, not a lot of maneuvering that happens until you start throwing missiles in. Missiles work like tiny ships. That's fine. So the Cheg's Venture is so here's where we got to talk about the supplements. There's a little bit of translation error that may have occurred here. I don't know that these ships are perfectly legal using these 3 little black books, because I had to pull from, in this case, this is a 400-ton close escort and a 400-ton, well, technically, I pulled that from, I think that is from supplement 7, for those of you keeping score at home. That is traders and gunboats, and it is a 300-ton ship, which, hey, wait a second. There is no such thing as a 300-ton hull. So what I did to make it a 400-ton hull is I upscaled it with a 100-ton drop tank for fuel. In those supplements, they are already using the classic Traveler. I think it may even be like the high guard rules, but I don't know anything about that. It's giving the jump drive, maneuver drive, and power plant in numbers. Well, I've got letters. So I said, oh, well, at least they told me that it has a total thrust of 3G. Okay, well, if it's got 3G thrust, then I guess that means I've got jump drives, and jump drives don't matter. We're not going to be jumping out. But I've got maneuver drives that give me 3G of thrust, and I guess I'll give them a Class G power plant. So as I take hits, I can take a little bit more damage to my power plant and still have a little bit of thrust. Okay, so that's one of the things to be aware of. The Chegs Venture, as I said, it effectively amounts to a 400-ton ship. It has maneuver of 3, and then it's got 81 tons of fuel. It's got a hold, which I'm not quite sure how that works. In a scenario like this, it doesn't matter. You get hit in the hold, whatever. We've got a pilot. We've got 2 gunners. We've got 2 hard points with triple pulse lasers. And then we have 2 more hard points. One has 5 missiles. One has 3 sand. This is kind of a pirate ship. And then it has a gig. So we actually have a second ship that we can launch. And this is a small boat. It's a fighter with a single laser mount. It's got only 3 ways to hit it. Once is to hit the maneuver drives, and you just wipe them out because it's pretty fragile. In the supplements, it says it's armored. I don't know what that means, so I call it an 8+ save. Every hit we take, I'm going to roll, and on an 8 up, we're going to ignore that hit. Gives them a little bit more survivability. There are 2 system defense boats. These do not have jump drives, which means they have maneuver drives F. See, no jump. They have 6G of acceleration. They've got a power plant of F, 28 fuel, 2 shots to the fuel tank. They cannot change their heading, and they have a single pilot with a gunner skill of 1. They have to choose. They have a triple pulse laser, and they have 3 missiles. And then here's number 2, which has the exact same abilities. Now we got to talk about the computer. And we've talked about the computer models before. The computer model 6 for our pirate vessel. And by the way, these are 200-ton crafts. So we got 2 200-ton crafts versus a 400. The computer model 6 gives us 15 different programs, which is way more than we really need. These guys swapped out their jump drive for a powerful Model 9 computer. What that means for our sake is that we aren't going to be messing around with swapping out programs on the fly. We got all the programs that we need. It also means that we can predict which programs are going to be running. I am going to give everyone predict 2, and they're going to be running, which gives you a +2 on your shots. Firing is simple, 2d6, trying to get an 8 or better. Predict 2 gives you a +2 that is counterbalanced by an auto evade program, which gives you -2. So long as both of these programs are in effect, everybody is still hitting on 8s. If you have return fire, which everybody does to begin, if you get shot at, you can shoot back. If you have anti-missile, which everyone does, you can shoot down missiles that are coming in. Electronic countermeasures, everybody's got that. When missiles hit you, you've got a 7-up save to blow up the missile before it hammers you. We're not going to be jumping out, but everybody's got maneuver. So if we went through and counted all of these up, I think it amounts to somewhere around 10 to 12. Not an issue. Okay, so everybody's going to be hitting on 8s. The ranges on these guns are 150 inches. Even at our half scale, 75 inches is off the table. We don't need to worry about that. For the sake of completeness, here is our modifiers. These are for the jump sequence. We don't care. Like it says, detection ability in open space, 500 inches, 250 hours. We are going to be starting our, we're silent. We're in planetary orbit. Somewhere between 25 and 5 inches is where you can actually notice another ship, okay? We're going to kind of hand wave that by saying that the Chegs Venture has some kind of a decoy device that it doesn't look like a pirate until it's too late. And as we open our combat, we are ready to begin. Simple laser fire. Everybody's firing pulse lasers. -1. That means everybody needs a 9 to hit. All right. And then again, auto evade, range greater than 150 inches, not an issue. Per half an inch of obscuring sand. Yeah, sand is a thing that you can drop, and it's like a nanobot swarm. It's got high vis reflective particles. It's not beach sand. It will stop incoming missiles and confuse them, and it will intercept laser fire and scatter it, so that all you do is it turns your regular laser blasters into a 40K las rifle, if you will. And I think we're pretty much ready to go. We just need to look at the battlefield. But before we do, let me turn my attention to the chat and see what everybody's talking about. 10G slingshot, do it. Yeah, you could do slingshots. Eric, close escort sounds like a Gazelle class to me, my favorite light combat. Jeremy Herndon knows more about this game. We're going to be leaning on him. Feel free to correct me at any time. Thunder Moose, we have all the punch cards. This is a remarkable amount of information to hold in your head. It's not. It gets so easy. I ran, it took me like, I got to be honest, it took me like an hour to find suitable spaceships to use. I didn't want to have to sit down and go through all the paperwork. And then all of the spaceships, like I said, they're for Classic Traveler. And so it was, and a lot of them are just, this is hard science fiction, so it's generally pretty boring. Once you sit down and work through it, it goes so fast. I did a second fight. In fact, here, take a look. This is the second battle that I did around a 6,000-mile planet. And so here is, and it's basically the same scenario. I had the Chegs Venture swooping in from this direction, and each one of these like bends is a separate turn. And as you can see, he's blasting at 4.75 inches, and then he goes, oh, well, I'll get closer to the ship. And the system patrol boats are coming in from this direction. So one comes like south of the planet and one goes north. But I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't appreciate that if I tried, he only had enough maneuver to change two, and he ran into the planet. Okay, reset. So let's try something else. Let's set a different course. The scenario in this case, and in the first fight that we're going to do, is the Chegs Venture has to get to near this planet, and then do a thing, and then get out. So we now have scenario objectives, and this is what you need in a battle like this. If you're just jumping in and trying to get to safety, just by all means, just use the more narrative style of combat. But in this case, I don't know what happens if I've got two system defense boats coming from this direction, and there's some issues here. If this is part of a greater role-playing game campaign, whether or not Chegs Venture launches a missile to try to scare these guys off is of critical importance. Is he being paid his expenses? If his expenses are met, yeah, I'll launch a missile every turn. I don't care. My employer's got to pay for it. If I've been paid 100,000 credits for this, and I can't remember, I think missiles cost 50. I might launch one, because any more than that, I'm going to lose money on this venture, right? So all of these factors come into play just in the decision of whether to break out the protractors and the rulers and all of that. But as I showed you, you don't need a protractor. I mean compass. So the other valuable lesson that I learned here is, notice how he blasts along this actual course. I said, okay, well, then he drops a missile onto the surface. He's doing like a terrorist run. And then he blasts clear out of the system, and he is booking, man. After turn two, like at 5.25 inches, like on the next turn, he's gone. So this little scenario here, this system defense boat is screaming in at 6G, 6 inches, and then he slows down a little bit. Okay, but he's still moving 4.25 inches. And that is where, this is where the ships are, but they're both moving so fast that by the time the system defense boat can get around the corner, like it takes him 1, 2, 3. Well, by the time he does that, Chegs Venture is hauling at full speed. Oh, I know. I remember the other thing is, this system defense boat took a shot to the drives. So he's only able to speed up by 3. Chegs Venture can also speed up by 3. He's never going to catch him, right? This 1, 2, 3, and then a fourth turn to get on a matching heading puts the Chegs Venture like 100 inches away at that point. So interesting case scenario in how this game works. And this is where I said, man, you know what? I really need to scale back by another half an inch. So I've got the room to maneuver. And that's what we're going to look at next, is our scenario. And I think in a one-to-one ship battle, this wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. And to simplify things and to slow things way down, Once again, I've got the Chegs Venture down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and I've got 2 system defense boats way over here. Now, you will notice, those of you that have sharp eyes will notice that this is actually 4 pieces of paper. So, in other words, we are looking at a battleground that is 16 by 22, which, if you cut it in half, means that we are effectively gaming on. I'm sorry, it's 18, 8.5 is 19. It's 36 by 44 inches. A lot more real estate. Half speed, and then so we can check this here. So I have a planet here that is 3 inches across. It's actually going to be double that, so that's 3,000 miles. No, it's 6,000 miles. And what you see in these concentric rings here is, with a 6,000 mile planet, well, first of all, right here, if this was Earth with a diameter of 8,000, you would have 1 G of influence, and that 1 G would pull you into a crater, like where there wasn't one until you showed up. This first ring is going to be, and that's where you refer back to this table. It took me some looking to figure out how this table worked. In fact, maybe an embarrassing amount of time. Custom design ships. So here's our ship data card that they recommended. Yep, got it. And of course, you can, if you have a planet, these are the formula that you use to figure out what the gravitational pull is at various distances. But Mark did all the heavy lifting for you. So we have a planet that has a diameter of 6,000 miles. And if we look across here, this is the radius at which, okay, so the radius of the planet is 3,000. So at 5.2 inches, you're going to have that extra vector pulling you in. At 4.6 inches of radius, you'll have 0.5, and that's what these circles are here. Oh, it looks like I'm missing one now that I look at this. So I guess let's fix this on the fly, right? Our center is going to be right about there. And so our radius is 3,000. So I have to cut this in half. So we're at 6. So at 2 point. So our first, yeah, I got this wrong. Okay. I'm glad I checked it. So at 2.5, 2.6. So at 2.6, well, all right, that's 2.75. This is going to be 0.25, and this is where you really hope to have a compass, because you could just set your radius to what you need it to be. Am I doing this right? I still feel like I'm doing this wrong. Let me make sure I get it right. Yeah, 6,000. So 5.8 is the radius. But at the surface it'll be 0.75. Oh, that was right. I'm sorry. The 2.6 is okay, got it. This circle is absolutely right. And again, I apologize for not having a perfectly spherical or perfectly round orbit, but this is our orbit at 0.6. This will be 0.5. If we're in here, 0.5, and if we're in here, it's 0.25. So again, just to show you how those numbers work out. This is the planetary diameter. That's the surface of the planet. And then when you are within 3.67, you feel most of the gravity. And then when you were at 5.82, cut those in half and you get, you get it, I think. When your actual movement vector is at the halfway point, you cut it in half. So if I have an actual movement vector that looks something like this, I start here and I end here, and my midpoint is within that band. That's when you have to add that extra 0.5 Gs. So I'm here, I think I'm going to wind up here, but oopsie, because my midpoint is here, I have to add that extra half an inch of vector movement, which lands me right here. So I thought I was moving that way, but the gravitational pull is now slingshotting me around. I think you guys get what I'm talking about. So let me back out, and we're now ready to start. Bear in mind, we're still not. There's one last thing we got to talk about. It's a half an hour of teaching you how to play. Let's see how long it takes to actually play. The turn sequence looks like this. First, the phasing player. Oh, wait a minute. This is different language than that included in the book. I actually prefer the language in the book because it gives you a little bit more interest. In the book, he talks about the intruder movement. And we're going to call the Chegs Venture our intruder, or phasing player. First, the phasing player moves, and you move his ordnance. Then he shoots, and then the non-player returns fire if he wants to. If he has anti-missile fire loaded, this is where he applies electronic countermeasures. This is where, if he has the return fire program loaded, which everybody does, then he can fire. Then the phasing player, launches his missiles. Sandcaster. Now bear in mind, you can only take as many actions as you have gunners. Chegs Venture down here, he can fire both of his triple lasers, or he can fire a laser and launch a missile. We'll start with the gig already outside of the ship. Then you just flip that around. Now the native player, the system defense boats, will move. Then they'll shoot. Then the Chegs Venture will shoot. Then the system defense boats will launch their missiles if they want, or their sand. And then look at it. Oh, here we have damage control. Oh, which again, this doesn't exist in the Three Little Black Books, so we don't have to worry about it. Right, phasing player ordnance reload. Gunner may reload 3 racks per turn. Each guy only really has 3 missiles, so I don't think it's going to come into play. The phasing player ordnance launch. Oh, determine surviving ordnance in contact. Throw. Oh, that's interesting. That doesn't apply to us. I think you get the idea. Chegs Venture moves, shoots, return fire, launch your missiles. Then we go to these guys. They move, they shoot, return fire, launch missiles. Okay, so that's all you have to do. Hopefully, this stupid computer, the stupid autofocus will come in. Now, I'm going to use the red to show you guys the difference each time. Ah, right, I forgot the mission here. Chegs Venture has to get to the inner orbit of this planet. So anywhere in this 0.5, he's got to have he's got to launch now we're going to call it a missile, but it's really like a lifeboat. He's got to deliver a package. Doesn't matter what it is. But what it does is it forces us to do something and get away. It's not enough just to do it. He also has to survive. Now we have some objectives. Now we have something interesting. We know that if this was just a shootout, we could just be rolling 2d6. But we have to plot it because all of these factors come into play. Will these system defense boats even have line of sight? After all, the planet itself blocks line of sight. So I will start. Chegs Venture comes on with a total speed of 3. And he's going to try to just get to within there. And let's boost. So this is his starting momentum. And we're going to boost his speed by 1. Kabow. So I'm going to write a little 4 here. He has a gig, which, and I guess what we can do is let's use a marker to see if this shows up a little bit better. And in this case, because he just accelerated in one direction, his expected plane of movement is the same. He's going to be going 4. The gig, we will use, let's use orange for that. And the gig launches at this point, like we'll say he launched the turn before this. They realized they were going to be intercepted. He said, I want to make sure that my little fighter is free. So he says, so the gig now also starts with that same 6G, which would put him here, but he's going to run an intercept course. And the gig, remember, has a total of 6G of acceleration, so he can actually accelerate over to here. And this is his actual set acceleration, which means that his movement is going to be here, and that is 4.75. Movement is already done. We've done vector-based movement. On the next turn, he's going to need to slow down because just looking ahead, 4.75 inches will put him right here. And we know that the system defense boats are going to be hot-footing it because they want to intercept before the launch. Before we do anything else, we do all of our blaster fire. The other thing you can do that makes this a lot more intriguing is the fighter here has a laser mounted on the front. It can only shoot in a 45-degree radius out the front like this. So you have to start thinking about, now in the case, you have to start thinking about fire arcs. These guys and the defense boats, their weapons are on turrets. We don't care, okay? So like I said, now we do our firing, and the Cheg's Venture is going to launch, remember we're hitting on 9s, up to 150 inches, up 75 inches in this case. So we're going to open fire on this defense boat here. We're worried about him coming around and intercepting. It's just a simple 2d6. And with a result of a 6, nothing happens, okay? Then he gets to return fire. Now, we didn't fire at this guy, so he can't do anything about it. But this guy can. He gets to return fire. He's got the program operational. With a 3, he's going to miss, and that's it. Then the Cheg's Venture says, I'm going to go ahead and launch, let's use Brown for his missile. So I'll write a little M here to remind myself that there are now 3 ships that I have to worry about. There are no rules in the little black books for fuel or thrust for missiles. You just didn't include it. I asked some smarter people with more experience than I have on Twitter, and they said, oh yeah, and one of the, I think it's High Guard maybe, I don't know, one of the other supplements, they said missiles have a thrust of 6, which is what I used yesterday for my little battles, but they only have 5 turns worth of fuel. Oh yeah, fuel. That's a thing you have to take care of. Now, in the absence of any damage, the gig, I guess, doesn't have to worry about fuel. But our Cheg's Venture is now down to 80 tons of fuel because he spent 1 turn accelerating. All right? Now, technically, the route of travel of this gig, this little fighter, would be something like this, right? He's moving in that direction, and don't worry about that, right? This is the level of abstraction that we're comfortable with. We've launched a missile. We're done with the turn for the Venture. Now I've got to worry about these 2 system defense boats, and they come ripping on. They have the alarm has been sounded. They were launched from the moon base or what have you, and they are coming in with a speed of 3, which would put this guy right here. And he says, I want to catch him. So I'm going to increase my speed. Now, he's got a total of 6, but we're going to try to cut through the orbit right here. And we're further away. So let's speed up by 2, and then we're really going to have to haul on the brakes. So he stops right there. So instead of going this 3 and then 2, well, it's actually 4, right? Because we've doubled our... Oh, I'm using red again. I don't want to use red. I want to use green for these guys, because that'll be a lot easier to look at. We're going to have such a lovely piece of abstract art when we're done. Oh, right. So that's our pretend movement. Our Romeo actual is going to be 5. So in this case, we're close enough to a straight line. 3 plus 2, that's close enough. So I put a little 5 there. And then this guy is going to take a slightly different line. Let's use green for him too. He was moving the 3, which would put him here. They were in formation. He says, I'm going to head him off at the pass. And I'm going to rip it a little bit faster, just this 1 turn to get into position. I'm going to go to here. This is my thrust vector. This is my momentum vector. And my overall vector is going to look something like this. And now we are at, well, call it 5.5 inches. That's close enough. But notice that he is headed straight for the surface of the planet. That could be a problem. And how long did I say that was? 5.5. But hey, he's got plenty of he's got plenty of time to slow down. Are they going to launch missiles? Yeah, I think so. Let's go ahead and drop... Well, first of all, before we launch the missiles, we got to do this in order, right? The black dice will be for him. The white dice will be for him. And we are, again... Well, wait a minute. We got to check. So we've moved to here. So we got to check line of sight. This So can I get them both on the page at the same time, both on the screen? Yeah, there we go. So if we draw a straight line from one ship to the next, we don't intercept the planet. Laser fire, it's a bunch of photons, right? Maybe it's plasma beams. It's not affected by the planet's gravity. So we got 2 shots, both hitting on 9s. We get a 7 and a 6. Nothing happens, but we drop 2 missiles. And again, those missiles will have the same direction of movement on the following turn. Oh boy, our boy here. Now here's the funny thing. I don't understand why you would drop sand unless you are in hot pursuit from behind. Sandcasters, that defensive armament, will continue to drift, and maybe they work like mines. I'm not entirely sure. Not going to worry about that. Instead, what I'm going to do is plot my movement. Oh, wait a minute. No, he's got counterfire, doesn't he? And does he? Yeah, they both do. So we took 2 shots at him. Oh, but that's the trick, is we took 2 shots at him. So he's got the 2 batteries now that can fire 1 at each of these guys. White is at the top. Looking for, we got a 7 and 7, so both of those miss. All right. Trading shots. Next turn, Cheg's Venture gets to go. They have a momentum of 4. If he's not careful, he's going to wind up right here. Oh, but we don't want to wind up there. Instead, we really need to start thinking about slowing down. And even though it exposes us to more fire, we also need to start thinking about getting into this orbit at a speed of 3 or less. If we're moving any faster than 3 Gs, our missile won't be able to turn in to make it into our drop pod, if you will. We're trying to bury Spock. So we want to slow down at this point. We're moving at 4. Can we afford 1 more turn? Well, the problem is, so let's do a little bit of thrust in this direction, and we'll slow down next turn, okay? So we thought we were going to be here. That's our 4 inches. We applied basically 1 G of thrust, and the actual direction that the Cheg's Venture traveled puts him right here, and he's still moving at, let's call it 3 3/4. 3.75. So we need to slow down even more, or we're going to be in trouble. That might put us out of the line of fire of this vessel over here. A straight line from one to the other. Yeah, look at that. The planet's in the way. So we can't shoot at this guy, but he can't shoot back at us just yet. So both of his cannon fire will be in that direction. We did launch a missile, however, so we need to figure that out. The missile also would land here, but it has plenty of thrust, and it wants to impact that guy. Now, the way a missile will work is, if we can get, because it's got 3 Gs of thrust, if we can get to within, or 6 Gs, I should say, if we can get to within 3 inches on our movement, if that target is anywhere within a radius of 3 inches, then that would be our thrust to intercept, right? And that means, but we don't want to blast too fast, because we don't want him to zip through that 6 inches immediately. So instead, I'm going to apply 1.5 inches, or 3 Gs, if you will. This is for the missile. Where's my brown? My brown should be here. So we applied 3 Gs of thrust, and now our missile is going to track along. Look at that. I have a nice little brown streak right here. Oh, but the problem. Oh, see, we should have done more, because our speed here is 4.5, and it's still headed into the planet. Looking ahead at the next turn, holy cats, our 4.5 will put the missile right here. That's no good. He may be able to get away, or maybe it is. It's really hard to predict this stuff. We're still not done with movement. We need to figure out what our little guy down here is doing. He wants to keep the bad guy in his front arc. In fact, he's now going to try to swing up to take on this guy. This System Defense Boat 1, I guess you could say. So we line up our direction, and 4.75, 1, 2, 3, 4.75. This is if he has no thrust to give. Oh, by the way, on this missile, it's really easy to track how many thrusts you've used when you do it this way, because look, there's 1. Oh, I've got 4 left. That's convenient. Well, that's where we expected to land, but I want to Let's ease up a little bit on this guy. Maybe we should try to take out this system defense boat. I don't want to be moving too fast. So I'm actually going to apply one thrust in this direction, wind up right there, and let's see what that takes us for the little gig. Our little fighter is now got a speed of 4 as we roll into the next turn. He doesn't have any missiles, so that makes it easy. But we have some shots to take. And if we put even just like a regular piece of paper down, do I have any handy? Yeah. If you want to find out what that 90-degree arc looks like, you just drop a piece of paper like this. So anything under this paper is in his forward firing arc. And both ships are. So I think, why don't we go ahead and just combine fire on this guy? That will limit the amount of return fire that we have to worry about. He will get 2 shots at us. Our fighter is going to roll, and he's going to be hitting on a 9. I guess one thing you could do to give your ships more personality, if our fighter had predict 3, he'd be hitting on an 8. As it is, it's a 9. And then the Cheg's Venture, he's got 2 turrets. He's going to take 2 shots at this guy. Oh, no, he's over here. Let's check line of sight. And there's our line of sight. So we're good, right? The planet doesn't intercept. So we get 2 shots with our triple laser this time. And we get 1 hit. Okay, good. Good. That means we can take a look at our cheat sheet again. We hit with a triple laser. That does 3 points of damage. And we have to check our hit location table. And we do this before return fire. So I'm going to roll twice. And we look at the starship. Notice the small craft only has drive, cabin, and weaponry. You hit the drive, he's just going to drift off. He can't make any more changes. He can still shoot at you. You hit his weaponry, he might as well turn around and start heading back for his ship. You hit the cabin, our boy is dead, and you're basically out of the fight. Any one of these, I think, takes him out of the fight, but at least with the weaponry, maybe he can get back. So, we got to roll 3 times on this. All right? And the first one, we get an 8 and a 4. So the System Defense Boat 2 is going to take 1 point of damage to the hold. All right, he doesn't really have anything in the hold. That's effectively... Oh, well, we do have the 8-up save. But again, a hold is essentially no effect. This 4, on the other hand, means the jump drive was hit. Well, he doesn't have a jump drive either. So both of those hits do no good. And then we roll one more time, and we get a 10. And in this case, we hit the turret. Oh, but he's armored. So we get a save, and that save means... nothing happened. And that save is on an 8-up. We rolled a 9, so the armor blocked the shot. But if it was a turret, we would randomly select 1 hard point, and we would just cross it off. He wouldn't be able to return. But now he gets to return fire. And he's going to take 1 shot at the gig with the black dice, 1 shot at the Cheg's Venture with the white dice, and he misses the gig, and he hits the Cheg's Venture. And again, with the triple pulse lasers, we're going to take a look at 3 points of damage. We get a 9, 8, and a 6, which means we hit the hull. I don't know what that means, to be honest with you. It decompresses. And if you, I'm assuming everybody's at battle stations, they're in vac suits. If you're playing the role-playing game and you don't have enough vac suits, somebody just died. So that's the one. Oh, maybe, but we have to make our saving throw. On a 7, we fail. Remember, 8-up does it. On a 9, the fuel took a hit. Oh, unless we make our save, we did with the 8. And then that last one, I can't remember what it is, so I'm re-rolling. And a 6, again, is the hull, and our armor check fails. So we took some damage to the hull. To make this a little more interesting, you can give each ship a certain number of hull points. Bigger ships, maybe you have 1 hull point per 100, and when you cross that last one off, you are done. I honestly, I'm not entirely sure what Mark was thinking on that one. Let's check the rules just to make sure that we are doing that right. When it's ordnance launch, double fire, that's all the computer stuff. A hull hit decompresses the ship's interior. Further hits have no effect. A hit on the hold damages items. So if you're running a free trader and you took a shot to the hold, whatever cargo you were hauling is destroyed. Dice to determine randomly which items are destroyed. Such damage may be reparable. Okay, so we haven't taken any damage yet. Pretty effective. Let me kick things over. Let me check out. So wait, that was the return fire. and we've done all of our movement, and we did all the shooting. So I'm gonna check the chat, see if you guys have corrected anything, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna do the movement for our native ships. The missile knows where it's at all times. That's a YouTube meme that is well worth watching. Caleb, I'll look it up. A torpedo to anyone plays Star Traders RPG by these. Yeah, I kind of think the missiles here work more like torpedoes because they kind of zoom around slowly. Missiles to me are like zoom. They just get in and zap you. But that might be because I cut my teeth playing Silent Death, which that's how it works. Missiles are like instant, and torpedoes just kind of chase you. They're kind of an area denial weapon. In fact, that may be a valid strategy for this system defense boat. They may decide, oh, there's a missile over here coming at me. I don't want any of that. I'm going to zip around the planet and hide. That may be something they can do. You can do boarding actions that are covered on page 43 of High Guard. That sounds like fun. One of the programs that you have is basically a don't touch my boats. Don't touch my boats. Well, let's see. The book is big, more entertaining naval careers. Yeah, chat talking about the special supplements, which I appreciate. Let's see. STB is pretty extensive. Starfire would be easier. Oh, Starfleet battles. Yeah, people got lasers for you, skunk. All right. Looks like I'm doing things right. I think. Now, I just looked at it briefly, but the chat is spending all their time talking about what an amazing host I am, and what a great job I'm doing, and how you should hit the bell and do the thumbs up and give me all the algo boosts. All right, let's do the easy one first. This old boy has to choose. Does he want to continue sweeping around? I think so. Let's see what happens. But he's going to slow way down. He says, man, 5.5, that's going to, if I continue on my current heading, I am going to leave a big smoking crater. I don't want to do that. I've got a total of 3 inches of change that I can make. So I'm going to slow way down to, let's slow down by this much. We're going to apply 5 Gs. This is our thrust vector. And that's going to lead us away from the planet. Where's my green marker? I had a green marker. There she blows. Okay. So his new heading is going to be 3 1/4. And this is where I think it might be worth talking about the fact that you can see how easy this is. We've only been playing this scenario for about 10 minutes. Compare this to something like Dungeons & Dragons 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, right? We're going to get through this whole scenario. I spent 30 minutes explaining the rules. We're only like 15 minutes into the actual fight. A 3rd edition combat could take an hour and a half. This is comparable to that. And much more interesting because you don't have the ability to just count squares. Oh, do I want to move 30 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. No, I just figure out where I think I'm going to end up and then I apply some thrust, find out where I do, measure, and I'm good, right? So this guy, again, man, he's going to blast 5 whole inches. He's moving at 10,000 miles an hour. Well, actually, it's worse than that because this is only over 10 minutes. That 10,000, you got to multiply that by 6. There's 6 of those things in an hour. He's moving 60,000 miles an hour. So he would move like this, but instead, and so would the missile. But instead, he says, I got this missile to worry about. I don't like him. I wonder if maybe I should apply all my thrust and head off in this direction. Oh, but then look, I'm going to run into the planet for sure. I'm not sure I want to do that. Oh, maybe I do. Let's see if we can evade that missile for the 5 turns. We'll apply all of our thrust in this direction. And we can come back even this way, and that'll slow us down enough. So we say, you know what? Yeah, let's go like that and see how fast we're moving now. We were at 5. We applied 5 Gs of thrust, and now we are moving at 4 G, which is still pretty quick, but 4 G on the next turn will take us into the planet, but we can apply some thrust to kick ourselves out this way and intercept Chegg, even if he's moving in a bad way. And it's our turn now that our missile would have wound up here, but it says, I've got plenty of go juice. I'm going to boost up. Well, ooh. So here's where the difficulty, here's where the planning kicks in. Maybe we just leave it here. Don't expend any fuel at all. We can chase this guy. He's only moving 375. We can, well, but if we don't, all right, because again, he's moving at 5. If we don't use any fuel, it's going to put us here. And now trying to move, we'll be up here, and we're gonna be, oh, you know, that's just not good. You really have to think several moves in advance, and it's not entirely intuitive how that works. Instead, all you can do is say, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm happy moving 5, but I do want to give myself a little bit of that cushion. So I'm going to apply 2 G's of thrust to here, and that means our missile. Maybe we use blue for the missile, huh? Winds up right here. Okay, so there's our missile. And it's got a speed, oh, it's still moving at 5. Okay, so M5. And we can drop a missile. Well, we're going to do that in a second. We have some shooting to do. This fella, System Defense Boat 1, does have turreted line of sight to the gig. And he says, great, I'm going to fire at him one time. I need a 9. I missed. The gig says, are you in my fire arc? We'll line this up. And he is, so the gig will fire back. He can only fire once, though, and he misses. Then this boat says, where is my target? We just kissed the planet. Look at that. We just can't quite hit him. But what we can do is we have our electronic countermeasures. We can shoot at this missile. But I want to look up the rules for that, because it strikes me as odd that you can shoot down a missile with the same difficulty as anything else. Predict our pulse laser. We're still hitting on 9s. But let's look at the rules for electronic countermeasures and for shooting, for defensive measures against missiles. Ordnance which impacts a target does D6 damage. Determine hit results separately. Consult the hit type. Apply a DM of 4, which is interesting. Shifting fire. You do have to declare who you're shooting at. So if we, that's a good point. At the start of the turn, you say, I want to shoot at Chegg. And then you wind up without a line of sight. You have to have the shifting fire in, and you are at additional -6. Which means we won't ever do that. Auto evade. ECM, the electronic countermeasures, confuses the homing heads of incoming missiles. During the laser fire, all missiles in contact with the ship are destroyed on a throw of 7 up. So that's only if you are when you hit. My reading of the rule is not that you fire ECM every turn. It's only like a saving throw. Double fire maneuver. There's a program that lets you boost the power of your weaponry, but there's a chance that bad things happen. Generate, library, predict, gunner, interact. That's one of the ones we're doing. Selective allows you to select there is a program that allows you to select, are you going to be shooting at the main compartment or engineering of the target? They insert DMs against the probability of hitting, but hits are assured to go to the select. So you can pick what you're shooting at, but there's a negative modifier. Interesting. Generate. That doesn't apply to us. Special situations, decompression. Ships passing close to the surface of a world may slow their speed through atmospheric braking. If a portion passes within a quarter inch of a world surface, reduce the vector by a quarter inch. Oh, that's interesting. That's kind of a nice little boost. But I can't find the rules for shooting missiles. Select the target. Laser return fire is conducted by ships which have been targets for laser fire from enemy weaponry. laser return fire may only be directed at enemy ship which fired. Laser return fire may be made against multiple targets. Anti-missile fire also takes place in the laser return fire phase. Ah, there you go. That's what I was looking for. It is dependent upon the anti-missile fire or ECM or both. For anti-missile fire, no target program is necessary. All right. So it is. It's just a simple case of when you're in your return fire. Oh, these guys fired. Wait, which turn are we on here? I've lost track now as I was looking up. 1, 2, 1, 2. So these guys moved and then fired, and then we did return fire. And now Cheg's venture does. If he has line of sight to this missile, this is when, and he does. So Cheg here can fire at this blue missile right there, needing a 9 or better to intercept. An 8 means he failed. All right, moving on to the next turn. We have, let's see, and then I think this guy, since he did not fire, he's going to drop another missile. Okay, the gig is, oh, how fast is he moving? Oh, I got to measure. I forgot to write it down, but that's the advantage of using the permanent record. This is a 4. So the little ship's gig is going to wind up, if he doesn't thrust, he will wind up right here. But he wants to thrust. He's in hot pursuit over here. And he needs to keep this system defense boat in his sights. So he's going to apply 3 Gs of thrust and wind up right there. So not quite as straight a line as I was hoping for. 4 would have taken us to there, but that's okay because it's just his pre-plotted movement. And he's going to wind up right here, right on the edge of the page, of course, with a speed of, we'll call it 3 1/4. So 3.25. And as you can see, that ship is right in his forward firing arc, so he's going to get to fire. Meanwhile, Cheg, this is the big thing right here. He's got to slow down to less than 3. But he is on a bad line. He is on line to run into the planet. The 3.75 puts him right here. He's got to shift his direction, and he's going to shift it. He's going to apply 1 G to right. Oh, he's got to come back by 3. So we're going to actually back him off by a full 1.5 inches so that he's not moving too fast. And we're going to kick out in this direction a little bit. I hope my hand isn't blocking that. So here's where he would wind up. And on a straight line, he crashes into the planet. But we need to keep him out a little ways, and we need to slow him down by at least 3/4 inch. So we're going to apply 1 full G of thrust to right there. And that's going to put him right here with a thrust of 2.5. Oh, yeah. And then the midpoint of that 2.5 is right here, which means the gravity of the planet does not affect him yet. And he's got his line. He's right. Now, the good news is, no, he doesn't have to worry about getting shot at this turn. And his missile is still moving. 4.5 would drop that missile right here. But the missile says, I'm going to accelerate my 3 inches, and I'm going to wind up right here. So this is the expected path of travel, this light brown line. And then there's going to be some brown drawers in the system defense boat 2. I could write out, and this is 1 turn, 2 turns. I guess I need the bigger ruler here. And I'm not even going to worry about. So here's our line. Except wait a second. He's moving at 6.5. The center is right here. There is going to be an extra 0.25 that will pull it 1/4 inch in this direction So we have to pre-plot and pull it out this way. Ooh, can he reach? That's actually, oh yeah, he's got plenty of room. The missile has a full 3 thrust, so we could bring it to here, even though it's passing through the gravity well of the planet. He's gonna boom right there. But you have to take that into account, right? If he only had 2 Gs of acceleration, then that 2 Gs he could have reached him, or let's say he had 5, he could have reached him, except that extra 0.25 would have pulled the missile off, and the system defense boat. So this could have been a very near miss. That was a close run thing for the Cheg's venture. Kablow, but he doesn't impact just yet. So everybody's moved on the part of the pirates. There's no cannon fire here. Oh, do we have line of sight to this missile? We do not. Our line of sight passes through the planet. So he decides, and without line of sight, I don't think you can launch a torpedo either. But he just got to live with it. Meanwhile, our little gig can fire, and with a 10, he is going to hit the, yeah, he could blow up the missile and save the Cheg's venture. Let's do that since it's a defensive, since we're fighting a defensive fight here. The gig says, and remember, the gig is going to have to rendezvous with the Cheg's venture too, so that's another little wrinkle that you have to worry about with this kind of scenario. But the Cheg's venture goes, the gig goes pew 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 and knocks that missile out of the sky. And since nobody shot at the system defense boats, they can't shoot back. We did launch a missile over here, so why don't we go ahead and start with that one? 3.25 inches will bring us to this point. And wrapping around the planet, I like using this little ruler here. We say let's apply 1 full G of thrust in this direction. It's going to slow him way down, but he's going to be on a very good line for intercepting the target. So I'll put the missile is going to look like this, and that's going to be 2.75, which is a pretty good rate of speed, 2.75. And then the system defense boat is moving at 3.25 in this, it's too big, 3.25 in this direction. So it would wind up here, and it says, I also want to slow way down. I've got a total of 3 inches of change that I can make. I'm going to go ahead and skim right there. I want to take lots of shooty actions. So I'm going to apply 2 Gs, and I'm going to wind up, not only that, but I can just kind of like hang out here, and I can wait for that little fighter to come screaming by. In retrospect, I think we probably should have made that fighter a little more dangerous, a little more scary. That will be 2.25 for his heading. And then because that missile blew up, we don't have to worry about that. But we do have to worry about, remember, you better apply some thrust, boss. You are going to wind up nosediving right into the surface of planet green and blue there. Moving at 4, this is where he winds up. He says, I don't want to wind up there. I'm gonna apply all 3 points of thrust to, well, which way do we go? We want to go kind of in this direction, right? It's getting a little crowded there. Let's apply some thrust. Now, if we apply 4 Gs of thrust to wind up here, so we're just kind of kissing the planet there. So instead of following this line, you guys still with me, right? Do we understand how this works now? And you have this wonderful little cartoon when you're done. He says, yeah, I'm going to go this way instead, and I'm going to wind up here with a speed of, well, let's see, that's, call it 2 1/4? Sure. So 2.25. And we may be doing a little bit of crossing paths with our friend over there. Do we have any line of sight? From here to here, we still don't. We still don't. We can shoot down here. So all of our guys, in fact, we can. We're going to take 4 shots at the gig. That's all we have. He's got line of sight. He's got line of sight. The gig did what he needed to do. He's going to take 2 shots, and he's going to take 2 more shots. And with a 6 and an 8, they all miss. The gig is doing well. The gig can fire back now. He's got that, and he can fire at this ship, and he gets a 6 and he misses. Laser fire does serious damage, but when you're running the programs that we have here, really not that effective, is it? Oh, what did I... Oh, are you guys yelling at me because I forgot that missile? Aces is supposed to come out soon. Let's see, there's good YouTube. Yeah, I forgot about this missile. Remember, this missile landed, and electronic countermeasures intercepted it with a 10. Oh, boy. Okay. So nothing happened. Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever happens, except I spend too much time online because that really means something. Hey, I'm getting a little nervous here. I did what I needed to. The pilot of this gig says, I do not want to get left behind. My path would take me to here. I can break to the tune of 3 inches, which would put me here, but that's, ooh, I don't know if I can kind of come around this side or not. I think he's fully committed, and this is where this game forces you to think. This is where this game really puts a heavy demand on players, 3.25. This is where our momentum takes us. But we have a lot of thrust to play with here. So I'm going to, this guy is going to, we're going to send him through the gravity well. He's got 3. We're aiming for this point right here. Okay? And we're going to kind of break. Now, that distance is going to be 4.25. All right? So 2.25, it takes us to right here. And that means that we have an additional vector in this direction of 0.25. This direction, and we'll just keep it simple, he's going to wind up right here, actually, because the gravity pulls him in. So he's got that little, you guys were talking about the slingshot. That could be good, could be bad, because not only is he winding up right here in this crowded space, but he is winding up there with an increase in speed of 4.25. He is hauling. But he does get to make a shot at the, ooh, so here's where our 45 degrees, our 45-degree fire arc, this system defense boat is out of his fire arc. It looks really close, I know, but he's out. We're just going to declare that because we want to make this interesting, which means he just fires his one little puke shot, and 9, he gets a hit right here. And he only has, let's see, what is he shooting? Does he have triple? He's got a laser mount. So he just does 1 damage. And with a 9, that damage is going to hit the fuel for this guy. And that guy's saving throw fails. The problem with System Defense Boat 1 now, and here's where we haven't talked about this yet because we've been shooting like blind men. Notice that you've got 28 fuel. I haven't been tracking fuel because I've calculated it when I need to. We just took a shot that wipes out 20 units of fuel. We only have 8 left. Or do we? Hey, wait a second. We've already burned 1, 2, 3 chunks of fuel. We are down to just 5. And so these little system defense boats, they're not carrying a whole lot. He needs to start thinking about, I can only make 3 more thrusts before I need to full break so that I don't wind up shooting off into space and they can't recover me fast enough. You have to think about what's going on away from the table. We're not running any suicide missions here. So that hit doesn't seem like it did a whole lot, but it did. Unfortunately for our hero there in the fighter, with the laser... Oh, you know, we might have been smarter to blow this up. Take out that missile. Too late now. They get to return fire, and they're going to land a hit. And because he's not armored, we roll a 6, and that is going to hit the little fighter's... Yeah, oh, the 6 is his drive. So he is now... Let me look up what that means. I think that means that he is going to continue moving at 4.25 in that direction forever. Forever. Damage. Small craft drive. A hit The craft cannot maneuver or accelerate or decelerate. How does that change things? Well, I guess the other thing to consider now is that the Check's Venture is going to have to go in this direction because it needs to match course and heading to recover its gig. So instead of zipping off in that direction now, he's forced to go that direction, and that's bad because they're going to be waiting for him. Not an easy scenario here, is it? We did 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't do the Check's Venture move yet. Let me do that. I probably should have moved him first. This is where gaming with friends is your friend, because they can stop and go, hey, you forgot about the thing. And I'm not looking at the, you'll have to forgive me, I'm not paying a whole lot of attention to the chat today. I know I'm probably being kind of a bad host. 2.5 is going to put us right here. But wait a minute, we need to kiss the edge of the planet. So I'm going to, I'm going to try to stop. I'm going to 2.5. And I know I'm going to get pulled in to the planet a little bit. And that's probably going to, so let's, do we counter that? We're at 0.5. We know we're going to be sucked in a half an inch. Ooh, that could hurt really bad. So I need to wind up like right here. I'm going to try to wind up right here. I'm going to apply 1G to boost myself away from the planet. And now that would put me, so here's my halfway point. This is 3, normally it would be 2.75, but because my halfway point is here, I have to add that extra half inch, and that means I'm going to wind up landing right here. The planet has got me in its grip, and I have an extra 0.5, which takes me to here, and I'm just going to miss, I'm just going to skim the edge of the atmosphere. Which, remember, if you pass that close, means you slow down by 1/4 of an inch. So I'm actually going to wind up right there, and my new speed is only going to be 2.25. I can only fire one weapon because I have to drop my payload. We have achieved a partial victory. But we do have that one weapon that can fire at this missile, so we survive. And we score a result of a 6. We've missed the missile. We did all the shooting over here, and then these guys, well, before the launch, these guys get a shot. In fact, they get 4 of them. Oh, no. The only one that gets to shoot is the return fire, and that's over here. He fires, and with a 5, he misses. So that's going to be then we drop the payload, and that's going to be the end of the turn. Now we look at these guys, and the first thing we'll check is, I don't think there's any question that the missile is going to land home. This may wind up being a suicide mission after all, because after all, the missile can move 2.75, which will take it right here, but he's got all kinds of thrust. He can thrust 3, and so he's going to curve on in, and he's going to strike home. That fighter really should have taken out the missile. He's going to have to surrender now, and that's not going to go well. So the missile is going to follow this trajectory, and oh, boom! It's going to hit the planet. Because of the... Yeah, oh, so if he misses the planet, so 2.75, if his targeting computer lets him miss the planet, he's got the 0.5 in there, so we need to kick him out a little bit. No, you know what? He's going to be... Well, he can't hit. He doesn't have line of sight. Rules is written, because it moves in a straight line abstraction, it impacts the planet, and our hero is going to escape from that. But he does still have 2 system defense boats that are barreling down on him. Terrain matters. There's our 2.25 for this system defense boat. It's going to turn into a kind of a cluster with all these green lines. But, and I think they're happy with that. I don't think we want to apply any thrust at all. I think we just continue moving the 2.25. Now, these guys do want to apply some serious thrust. 2.25, let me turn around this way. So there would be the 2.25. And they say, you know, I want to apply 3 thrust. I'm going to apply 2 thrust because I want to wind up right here. So that means they will be this System Defense Boat 1, is going to be with a thrust of 1.0. And System Defense Boat 2, just cruising along his merry way, says there's 2.25, and he says, I'm just going to maintain. So they're pretty close, but he's got 2.25 as his speed. And neither of them are in the gravity well, so that will end that. The System Defense Boat, both of them are going to drop missiles. So we have a missile here and a missile here. And that means they both get to take one shot. We're going to fire one shot at the... Oh, no. We blew this guy up. We are... Oh, he's going to... You know what? We don't have to worry about him anymore. We hit his drive. And their targeting computer says, you know what? On the next turn, he's going to be so far ahead of us that we don't have to worry about him shooting us. Like, if he had the ability, if he was going a little bit slower and he wound up back here, these guys would be in his front firing arc. But on the next turn, he's going to move to here, and he can only fire in that direction, so it's not going to matter. So that's where they stop. They drop a couple of missiles. They take one shot. We got one more shot here, which does have line of sight. And with a 12, they're going to hit the Czech's Venture for 3 damage. And the first one, let's roll the saving throws first. So the first shot is going to be a hit. The second shot hits, and with the armor, 8. So only 2 of them get through, and those 2 damages are going to be a 9 and an 8. I'm a little disappointed neither of those missiles hit, to be honest with you. So the 9 and the 8 is fuel and the hold. So the Czech's Venture now drops down from, well, he was at 1, 2, 3, 4. He's burned 4 fuel. So he would ordinarily be at 77, but he just got popped, so he's at 57 fuel. If he takes 3 more shots, he cannot change his course or heading. That was the return fire. So now the Czech's Venture gets to go, and as I said, this ship's gig has got it is easy to track because he's going to just go 4.25, and he stays at 4.25. The Czech's Venture, on the other hand, has to get out of here. And so he is going to blast away at, well, he's moving at 2.25. So that means he will move. So this is where he's at, thanks to the pull of the gravity. So 2.25 would put him here. He's still got all of his thrust, and he wants to help his buddy out. So he can blast up to, and he's trying to match speed too. So if we go to 4.25, so we want to land here. And so this is the other nice thing is you can back calculate, right? I know this looks like a mess, so let's do that. So this is where he would wind up. And I want to go wind up with a full thrust of 4.25. So I want to stop right here. And then on the next turn, I can match direction and maybe pick this guy up. So this is our expected travel. This is our thrust. Some people would look at this and they would say, all you did was blast in kind of a straight line. I'm not some people. What we did is we had to mess around with orbital mechanics, line of fire, picking targets. I'm a little disappointed that we haven't had more shooting, but, you know, if a ship blows up, that's a little bit less fun you can have. And then we are moving at 4.25. And we get to do some... Oh, you know what the problem is, though? These 2 missiles. We're going to fire at the 2 missiles. Looking for a 9 left and right. 9 and 9. We miss both. No return fire for the bad guys. Their missiles are now going to strike home. We launched 1 missile at this guy. So this missile is going to go 1 inch, and then it's got a 3 inch, so it goes kabloosh. And then this missile has a momentum of, oh, can this missile reach? 2.25. And then it has a thrust of 2 to get it to land right there. Yeah, so that is going to be, this missile will be able to go whoosh, and this missile will be able to go whoosh, and they're both going to strike home on, I think they move on the return fire phase. As far as this ship is only moving at 1, they'll continue moving at 1. They're going to drift because they don't have a whole lot of fuel and they don't want to get caught out. So they're going to go 1. That saves. They still have 4 fuel left, and they'll be able to use those fuel to get back into an orbit. Whereas this particular ship is going to move, well, I don't know, gotta use the things. It's going to go 2.25 and stop here, and then it's going to say, yeah, but I'm in hot pursuit. I'm going to slow down to the tune of 1, and I'm going to stop right here, and maybe I pull up alongside and say, listen, bud, there's no reason that you have to die. I've slowed down to 1.75, and I can chase after him if I want to. But we will trade shots. This guy has 1 shot at the Venture, and he's going to hit, and the Venture is not going to save. So, 1 hit save, 2 saves, and 3 saves. So 2 more hits on the Venture, and we're going to get a 7 and a 4, and those results will be a hit on the hull for no effect. The 4 knocks out his jump drive. So it doesn't knock it out. His jump drive is set at it's at an E. His jump drive drops. It's damaged from E to D. You got to hit it 5 times in order to knock it out. But we've damaged it. Then this ship, not worried about the gig anymore. He is going to fire both shots, and that's going to be a 7 and a 10. So we got 1 hit. So 3 hits. We're looking for saves. 1 save, 2 saves. So we got 1 hit, and that's going to hit the 7, which again is on the hull for no effect. But the Cheg's Venture gets to return fire once at this guy with a miss, once at this guy with a miss, and that's going to be the end of the bad guy's turn, except now the missiles strike home. We get to roll an electronic countermeasures. We got hit twice, and we're gonna knock out one of them, but one of them hits for 6 damage. And kablow, we take 2 more damage, so we roll 2 more locations. But missiles are really deadly because they're at -4, meaning we scored a 1 and a 2. Both of those will hit the power plant of the ship. The Cheg's Venture's power plant started at an E, and now it falls to a C. And we have to look up what the end result of that is. So you go back to the ship's maximum drive potential. We were at E. We just took 2 hits. It's now at C, and that means he's only got a maneuver and a drive of 1. If he takes 1 more hit to his hull, I'm sorry, not his hull. If he takes 1 more hit to his power plant will drop to B, and he won't be able to change course at all. He'll have to surrender or die in the vacuum, which is not an option. And I think this is where we could probably draw the line. Or do we? That's the green team's turn. Cheg's Venture has... So this guy is going to move 4.25 inches, which will put him... Oh, look. I sure am glad we have an extra piece of paper. Because you can always just add to your arena. Let me tape that in place. And we can continue this. And see if maybe the Cheg's Venture... I actually think he's going to wind up getting blasted out of the sky before all is said and done. But we can find out, is he at least able to recapture his fighter? The fighter is stuck going 4.25. And remember, we've only... Okay, so the 4.25, remember our drive was reduced. This is another fun little math puzzle. We were heading in this direction, 4.25. That's where our momentum carries us. We have only a 1/2 inch of movement. This is where he winds up. So by hitting the power plant and reducing his thrust to just a mere 1, now he can no longer pick up his buddy. He's only able to adjust his path of travel to there. And the good news is he's still at 4.25 for his speed. But that 1/2 inch is all he can do. So it's going to take him a long time to swing around and intercept with his friend. And in that time, these guys, I mean, it just becomes a running gunfight. And this is where we get 2 shots. We'll fire 2 shots. We'll drop. Should we drop a missile? Now we'll just fire 2 shots, one at each of these ships. We hit the one on the left, and he gets 3 saves because he's armored. He misses 1, 2, 3. So we do 3 damage to, which one is that? That's defense boat 2. And we do a 2, an 11, and a 5. So system defense boat 2 is going to take a hit to the power plant. Where we go? Okay, so his power plant is going to go to, he was at F, so his goes to E. It was a 2, 5, and a 10. He loses a turret. He's only got 2 weapons. He's fired off, I think, 1 or 2 of his missiles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. The pulse laser is gone. So the only other option he has is to drop that last missile. So Cheg's Venture could still escape from this, guys. So 2 is the power plant. 5 is the ship's computer. Now, the ship's computer is very interesting. We haven't had to talk about this yet. The computer, I'm going to put a little -3. Everything that you do is affected by the computer. If the computer goes on the fritz, you're in big trouble. That was our shooting at these 2 vessels. Okay. This ship now has a real problem because the way this works is computers. You roll 2. Anytime you do anything, you roll a 2d6, and if you get a 1 or better, it happens. But what if you take damage? There's a -3 DM to that roll. So now I need to get a 1 or better. Well, but if I roll a 3, a 2 or a 3, I fail. So this ship, it's their turn now. We fired. They get to return fire. Oh, but wait a minute. To return fire, you have to use your interact program. Which means, we got a 5. It worked. Now we're going to return fire. And the return fire program with a 5 -3 is a 2. It worked. So we can actually take a shot. We get a 10, and we hit for 3 damage. If you get 3 or 4 hits on a computer, the ship is out of action. We get 1 save. And wait a minute. That's System Defense Boat 2. They don't have a weapon. Never mind. Their weapon got destroyed. All they can do is launch a missile. This guy fired. And then, so it was, that's the only, and oh boy, yeah. So we didn't fire twice. Let's reset the clock. Let's redo this. He only gets 1 shot. And that shot is going to be a 7, which is a miss. So this fight is not over. These ships have taken some serious damage, and the damage that you take plays a role in what happens next. Cheg's Venture fired. These guys return fire. And now these guys have... So remember, this guy, he's kind of got to fade back. He's only got like 2 fuel left. So he's going to follow on this line and keep shooting as long as he can. This guy, his power plant was reduced to an E. So he was at a drive of 6 with a power plant F. He's now only got a drive of 5. He can only increase his speed by 2.5. And that might be important because his 1.75 would take him to here. But actually, it's not that big a deal because he can go by 2.5. So he's absolutely setting himself up on an intercept course. And I think you guys understand well enough now how the vector movement works. So I can just say, yeah, he's going to be moving here at a speed of 3. So he's falling behind, but he's got the gumption. He's got the goose to go, right? And he's got the fuel for it, at least for now. That's just, but he doesn't have but the big thing is he doesn't have any cannons. So what he really could do is he can drop that last missile. And at this point, he is close enough. This guy doesn't have enough. And without shooting at him, the Venture can't return fire. So we'll do another 4.25 for the mission was a success for sure. We're just trying to see what happens. So there's where he winds up with that same speed of 4.25. The big boy has to move 4.25 in this direction. But he's got that half an inch, so he can move to here. And he's now traveling at a velocity of 4.25 2-5 again. So it's going to take him a long time. And at this point, I think you would be well within your rights to say, okay, we're going to just trade shots to find out who blows up who next real good. This long arcing curve is going to take a long time to resolve. And I just don't have enough paper for it. And we know that this guy is going to be following suit. So you could actually sit down and run the numbers and say, well, they're out of range at, what was it, 75 inches? Well, how long would it take this guy traveling at 4 versus 4.5? It'd be like 80 turns, which is effectively forever. But the Czech's Venture can drop a missile and take a shot. And so he shoots and he misses. But he also drops that missile. So on his next turn, this missile is going to be headed back for this guy and maybe shooting him out of the sky. I don't know what happens at this point. At this point, it just becomes kind of a run and gun battle. I'm tempted to just, we've been at this for an hour. Again, this is comparable to like a 3rd edition combat. But I think at this point we'll close the curtain. We've got this little run and gun battle. I mean, maybe we could fire a couple more shots. You know, this guy fires. We could land a missile. So the missile is going to land next turn, and then next turn. So I think they're both going to blow each other up. To be honest with you, right? So we both miss this. Well, he misses this turn. Well, that's what it is. He's going to fire one missile, his last missile. He's fired his last missile. So we took a shot, and then he can't shoot back. But on his turn, this missile is moving at 3 inches, and it has 3 inches of boost. So it can move to here, and it can just catch him. So we'll check to see, without firing, there's no counterfire. We'll check to see the countermeasures work, the missile doesn't work, and I think our guy got away. The Czech's Venture succeeded. This missile then comes back. And unfortunately, that missile, remember that missile is going to take a lot longer because that missile is moving at 4.25. And so if it uses all of its thrust to slow down, it will move 1.25 inches. And it will wind up right here. That's one turn. It'll stop here, right? And then let's see where this guy goes. So then this guy is going to move, and he says, oh, no, I'm going to slow way down. He could stop. So that's one turn. And then on the next turn, it can accelerate by, well, it'll move 1 to here, but it accelerates 2 inches back. So it winds up here with a speed of 2. So that's, we did 1, 2, and then it becomes 5, 3, and it winds up here. Whereas this guy goes full stop and then blasts off in the opposite direction. So he is going to be able to outrun that missile, and that's going to be the end of the scenario, I think. The 2 system defense boats exercise the better part of valor, and at the low price of 150,000 torpedoes, if we now, you know what I can do? I can zoom up and I can back out, and we can take a look at what this looks like with the orbital mechanics. The Czech's Venture, it's not gonna obey me now, is it? Oh, what a pain in the neck. Okay. The Czech's Venture comes screaming in, makes a little bit of a course correction, drops a missile to scare these guys off. They come swooping in. They take a couple of shots that really badly affect. I guess this guy, even though he's drifting in this direction and circling back, he could probably take a few more pot shots at the Czech's Venture as well. So maybe he wouldn't have nearly as good a chance of escaping. But I think the Czech's Venture has to be happy with this outcome. And I think we all have to be happy that we have played what most people consider to be an unplayable system. But as we know, most people are idiots. And most people don't appreciate that when you read a rule book like Traveller, with a lot of really complicated processes going on, a lot of weird little subsystems, it can appear really daunting. And you might think, this is too hard. Why would I want to go through all of this orbital mechanics stuff? Well, 1, because you're smart enough that you can handle it. 2, because when you break it down into all of these little steps, I just need to figure out where I think I'm going to be, where I want to be, draw the line, think ahead 3 moves, and that's where it really comes down to it. With a game like Dungeons & Dragons, I think you can really, and we all know this to be the case. This is one of the reasons, things that people complain about, particularly with 5th edition D&D, you roll your D20 and you're hit, and then you can wander away from the table for 15 minutes. And then you come back and say, What's the situation? Take it in stride, and then you just move. And there's no way of predicting what everything is going to be, how everything is going to happen. So you can just like dip in and out. It's not that big a deal. You don't have to pay close attention. I don't need to plan 6 moves ahead because my next move is going to be so wildly random, whatever, bro. But with this one, you got to think about this stuff. You got to think, well, if we had taken a different line and tried to circle around the planet with the System Defense Boat 2, then I don't know that we would have been able to catch up. He was moving pretty quick. We had to brake and slow down in this area, of course. So that was another thing we had to worry about. But I'm really impressed with how well this worked. I don't know that I would interrupt a 4-hour session where we had guys planning some kind of a jailbreak or a revolution on the planet's surface. But I would absolutely play this again sometime. Let's check in the chat, see if you guys are annoyed with what I did. That is a gorgeous looking map with the vector tracks on there. It reminds me of naval battle maps that show position based on time. Yeah, this is it has a lovely record, and Mark even points that out. You've got now a permanent record of what it looks like. Bill Cedar Heath, that's a sweet map when you know how it got that way. Let's see, what are we talking about here? Did I miss it? Okay, the big question I have is, did I miss anything really big and really important? I think I did. Like up here, when this guy's computer was damaged, everything he was doing, he needed to roll that 2d6. If we launched a missile and we rolled a 3, the missile doesn't launch because the program doesn't work. If we change our heading, we got to roll 2d3, and if we roll a 3, then it doesn't work because you need to get that 1 up. And I think the odds of that are like 10%. So 10% of the things you try to do don't work. You take a second hit and you're at -6 on that roll. A 5 or less, you take a third hit and now it's an 8 or less. You got to roll a 9 in order to do anything. Computer hits are deadly, and they may be worth taking the I don't know. I think it's like a -3 DM, a -3 modifier, die modifier for that. Really enjoyed the analog representation. Yeah, never give up, never surrender. Let's see, Charles Owens, this is turning into a nail biter. Let's see, I don't remember facing being a thing in book 2. Well, yeah, it's not in book 2, but that's because all of the weapons in book 2 are turret based. In the the description of the ship's gig, and it's really just like you know what it is. Let me back up a step. The earliest books, the earliest supplements, are very much an Honor Harrington conceit when it comes to space travel. It's very much kind of big wooden ships, but we're in space. Later on, when you get into the more imperial ship designs, it starts becoming more of its own thing. And so the gig is literally just like it's a ship's boat. Like, I mean, we've all seen Master and Commander, right? You drop a cannon in a rowboat with 12 guys and 4 guys to shoot it, and you're going to be moving around and you're going to be plinking away at the bad guys. It gives them one more thing to think about. And I kept calling it a fighter because it's just easier for me to think of it as a fighter. But in the description for the gig, it doesn't have a turret. It has a mounted laser. So I said, okay, for the sake of this battle, I'm going to treat that ship. Now it has like a 6G. So it starts out with a 6G where, you know what? I think the Cheg's Venture, I cheated big time. Cheg's Venture should only be able to maneuver by 1.5 inches each time. And I was doing 6. So he was seriously upgunned. Yeah, like right here. No, this thrust, no, I think I'm good. This one right here, this should not have been that 2 inches. I should have pulled that back 1.5 inches. Or did I get that wrong? I might have gotten that wrong too. For the damage. So this would probably take him even longer to catch up to his gig, but he would be able to do it if these guys break off contact. The fuel for the system defense ship was hit. He wouldn't have been able to chase along. Yeah, I mean, this guy, he only had like 3 boosts left, so he could have gunned it up to 4, but then he would only have 2 left. Like, let's run the numbers on that. He's got a heading of 1. If he boosted once to 3, he would have, what did he have? He had 5 left. Let's see, we lost 20, so we had 1, 2, 3, 4. So we had 4 left. He could have used 1 to get to 4, but then he would have to use 2 to get back to here, and then 1 more to rendezvous. So he could have given chase, but his maximum speed would have been 3 inches, and he would have been losing ground each time. But again, that losing 1 inch means that they would only have been able to trade shots 75 times. All right, well, that's effectively infinite for the amount of shots that would be taken here, right? So at the end of the day, it still boils down to, you know what, just roll some damage and shooty dice. You figure you got like 5 turns of combat. And I mean, what did we, or, 1 or 2 missiles, if you will. Let's see. Sex Edmund Thunder says, you are not a computer, you do just fine. Yeah, in that case, you'd face the acceleration direction, not the final vector. Yeah, if you have a speed of 3, and here's the other thing. So if you have a speed of 3 moving in this direction and an acceleration of 3, you're gonna have to burn 1 to come to a full stop, 1 to get going where you want to go, and you got to save 1 to stop and make rendezvous. So you need to save 3 fuel. And maybe you say, well, I don't care. It'll take me a week to get there, but I'm fine. But you need to save those 3. So you only have like 1 or 2 left for combat. And do you really want to risk it? Put yourself in the position of the guy flying that ship. If I take 1 more hit to my fuel tank, I can't stop at all. I'm just going to drift at 1 inch, because that means that a rescue boat will be able to come get me before I starve to death, right? And likewise with the Chegg's Venture, he has enough fuel that he can go ahead and keep boosting by 1 and then swing over later on after pursuit has failed. So on the one hand, if you were doing this as a kamikaze game where I just, I don't care who dies or whatever, then you would do that. But because we're trying to drop this into a campaign game where all of that makes a big difference, I don't want to burn fuel. That costs money, right? I'll drift until I make those repairs. And now I did notice there's no rules for damage control in this book. Later on, they must have added that, because if you look at here we've got phasing player, computer reprogramming, damage control. On a 9-up, you repair 1 hit. Well, kind of, right? I don't know what that means. And this is where you've got apply skills as DMs. All right, so my engineer is trying to fix the power plant. I can repair it by 1 hit, but if my fuel cells are hit, I would argue, okay, if your fuel cell is hit, 10 of the 20 that are lost to space. But you can repair it. I would say the other 10 are like damaged fuel lines, or we shut it down in time. But in order to, if I have a repair to the fuel, then I can get back 10 fuel. Does that make sense? So this guy here, if he's able, and again, I would argue that you need a ship's engineer to make that. He's a pilot gunner. He's not an engineer. He can't make those repairs. But this ship, absolutely, 400-ton trader, he's got an engineer. If I were able to repair my fuel hit, I could get 10 back. Like 10 I can't, because it's just lost to space. But I can repair enough of the fuel, or I can divert fuel from the emergency reserves, right? Or I can bypass the motivator, kind of thing. Fleeing being more common for PCs. Yeah, Eric, I think it all washes out in the end here if anything got missed. No, let's see, the fuel's gone for good. It's only the pipes that can be repaired. Or here's the other thing you do. Maybe you say, with a successful repair roll, you can recover D6 fuel. Because now you're like, ooh, do I want to repair the ship system? Or do I want to take the chance that I only get 1 fuel back? SBDs might not pursue far. The SDBs, the system defense boats, they are there to protect the planet. And if drawn off, it's open season. Yeah, couldn't you maneuver to force the chasing ship to use fuel and run out? Yeah, kind of. If we had, there's 2 things. The fighter is locked in to his direction and speed. Can't make any changes. The game has now changed from deliver Spock to the surface of Genesis to recover our what would it be? Our shuttlecraft that we dropped a couple of pulse torpedoes in. I don't know, but remember, he's only got one thrust available to him now. We can make engineering checks. Oh, maybe if our engineer, we need a, oh, look, we repaired. So now our power plant goes up by one. And maybe we have two thrust instead of the one. And we can catch them a little faster. But man, what a fun little game. What a fun little exercise. Again, if it takes an hour and a half to play this out, I'm not going to use this for a pirate fighting a free trader in open space. But I could very easily imagine another scenario. In fact, I prepared this one. I didn't color it yet, but this down here is Saturn. So I'll put some nice little Saturn clouds. I don't know where the rings are. But imagine what this game would look like. The rings that you see here are gravity rings. This first one is one full G. Saturn, if you look at that chart, has a diameter of like 40 inches. So the surface of Saturn, let me get this. I gotta darken this so it shows up a little bit better. I could very easily imagine a scenario where a pirate vessel is trying to recover fuel. He's got only a limited amount of fuel, and he needs to get down into the atmosphere. That means, so this is 1G. There is 1G of thrust in this direction. He needs to spend a full time in this band. Come on, focus, you jackwagon. He needs to spend one full turn in this band here in order to fill up his scoop, and then he needs to get off the paper. This band right here is 0.75. This band way out here that you can barely see, that is your 0.5, and everybody in here has a 0.25 vector pulling in. So this, the exact same battle with Chegg's Venture starting down here, trying to get into there and blasting off to safety, with the system defense boats coming in from over here, presents a very different challenge. This little tiny planet changes things. Oh, what if... So this complicates. Man, you got to be really smart because you got to figure out what... You have to keep adding in these... And by the way, these vectors are perpendicular to whatever arc they are. And again, if you had a piece of string, you could make nice, clean circles here. I just kind of sketched them in so you can barely see them. It's like somewhere about right there. It's not a consistent vector. This vector over here is pulling you straight down the paper. This vector over here is pulling you at a 45-degree angle. And it's to scale. I don't know where the rings are. But I mean, that's, you know, now you're trying to, I got to keep thrusting out. And if you lose your ship's system, if I'm in here and I've got a constant vector pulling me at 1G into the surface of the surface, I guess this surface here is the point of no return, where you just can't get out of it. Like I guess it's like atmosphere breaking. I don't know. It doesn't matter, right? This is the point of doom. If you don't have enough thrust, if you're coming in at an angle and you get hit in your engines and you don't have enough thrust, you could very easily get pulled in. What if I drew a couple of asteroids? Here's where a big asteroid got blowed up real good. And so these present navigation hazards. Now, I might not be using my full 3 inches every time. I might want to make sure that my vectors look a little something like, you know what? I'm going to stick with 1 inch. I'm going to drift a little bit more. I'm going to blast over here and hope that I have enough vector to reduce my speed enough. Like, this is a whole separate puzzle. It's a whole separate game. The more I look at this, the more I'm amazed that I had to be the guy to sit down and go through all this. This looks like an enormous amount of fun, and I'm sure I'm not. I'm sure a lot of you guys have done this too. Let's see. Couldn't you maneuver the force? That's pretty good. That's the RPG tension there. It's very intriguing, and I like the way it feels in play. You could use centimeters to scale it. Yeah, that would be another way to do it. That gets you down by 40%, which is a little bit better. Yeah, the atmosphere gets too thick for the scoops. You overheat and you blow it up. Crunch terrain makes space combat a trip. Yeah, you could even put like a space Hulk somewhere. You know, put the damaged installation. It not only, and this is where things get interesting. And another place where things get interesting. If you have an installation that you're trying to get to, then you can give that installation a vector and a heading. It's moving at 2 in that direction. And in order to rendezvous with this planet, you need to get within a 1/4 inch anywhere, and you need to have that vector in the same direction in order to complete your lock. And then it's 10 minutes. You've got 1 turn to turn on the system defense lasers, and you can start shooting at the other vessels. So this is a case where you put a puzzle in place. You put, hey, here's an installation. You're starting over here, and on turn 4, ships are going to appear here, and you've got 4 turns to work out the orbital mechanics or the thrust and vector mechanics to put yourself in this position. If you take 2 extra turns, now the game is, can these 2 ships figure out how to get close enough to start shooting at you before you get in there and turn on the, hack the system? And maybe it takes multiple turns to hack the system. Maybe once you're in, you need to start making computer checks. I hope you got computer 3, because you need to roll, if you don't have somebody with computer 1, you got to roll a 7 or better. It could take 2 or 3 turns. In those 2 or 3 turns, these system defense boats could be blasting your ship to smithereens. Even if you turn it on, you don't have an escape vessel now, right? There is so much potential for adventure with this system. Objective markers, some with vectors. Yeah, Charles Owens, he's already doing that. What if you had a free trader that needs to, and these things are all moving, I'll say this though, bear in mind that if all of your asteroids are moving at the same direction, at the same speed, and this as well, if this is the only thing with the vector movement, then just turn everything off, right? This is really only necessary if you have, here's what the puzzle would have to look like. Here is an orbital station that you have to get to, and you have to match its direction. But there is a large asteroid moving towards it. Oh, wait, but it's on an intercept course, and it will intercept. You'd have to calculate, here's where it's going to intercept, right? So this asteroid is moving on an intercept course, and you got to get close. Also, there's another asteroid down here, which is not going to intercept, but it's moving in this direction. So now I have more hazards that I have to be aware of. As I come in, here's another asteroid, and it's moving in this direction. Now that you've got different vectors, now the distance and magnitude of thrust takes on a much greater import. If I only have one thing on the table that's moving at a given speed, then technically the whole table is moving at that speed, and you don't need to worry about it. Something else to consider. We have now done some serious hard science fiction and created some interesting hard science fiction puzzles. I think we've done the hard buds of sci-fi one better, and I think that the other thing that would be fun is to try, what if you had 4 ships, right? What if you had 4 small ships going after one big vessel? Then you have more variables at play, and it becomes more interesting as well. I'm going to check the chat just one last time, and then, we've been at this for almost 2 hours, so we're going to call it for the day. Dart Mart in the house. He loved asteroids back in the day, and that's pretty much what we're talking about. Maybe you got those asteroids moving all around, and I just need to get to within one of them, hook it with my tractor beam, and then blast away. But because I got this extra mass, it reduces my thrust by 1. So instead of having a thrust of 3, I've only got a thrust of 2, and I'm still trying to escape from the guys, but they don't want to shoot the installation or the asteroid, so now they have to make sure that they get around to the right side, and blasting over there fast enough might mean they got to take a long curving path. It's just, man, the possibilities are as infinite as the depths of space. They are as infinite as God's love for you. And with that, we're now 2 hours in, which is longer than I expected, but I'm glad to see there's like 30 people still watching this. There's great stuff in here, man. Maybe I'll do this record it and post it as a lessons learned. I actually did this one. Where is it? I actually did my first one. That's going to be appearing. My fumble through looks a little something like this, but it's way worse. That's going to be appearing on the channel here in about. I've got a lot of things pre-scheduled, so in a few weeks we'll actually go through the same thing as a pre-recorded video. Some people like those better than the live play. I can edit out all the oh no wait oops, and maybe I do this as a live scenario or as a pre-recorded so we can edit those out. Till next time, guys. I'm praying for you.